in our chat here.
Sounds great. So to welcome everyone to the webinar, happy to do some quick introductions into who we are and what we're going to be talking about, a little bit of background on intelligent relations as well. So I am Steve Marcinuk. I am the co-founder and general manager here at Intelligent Relations, deeply involved in both the PR side and on the product side, on the side of Preston, our PR platform.
And I'm Carolina Calkins. I'm the Director of PR Services. I'm in charge of leading our PR services team and in close contacts with all of our wonderful clients.
Yeah, so some of you, this may be your first point of contact with intelligent relations. So let's just give you a little bit of background before we dive into what I imagine most of you are here to learn about. So background on the team, we were founded in 2020 with artificial intelligence at our core. So we are a PR technology company. We built the Preston platform, which is a combination of database, journalist media database, podcast database, press release distribution platform, and a whole suite of AI tools to help marketing and PR pros do their job more effectively. We also have, as Carol represents, a services team that we use to help deliver PR excellence for a number of full service clients that get the human touch and also the AI platform that we discussed. And most of the clients that we work with on that side are niche industries, B2B technology. Many of them are in that space as well. We have over 100 clients we work with around the world and a team of 60 folks internationally distributed. So that's a little bit about who we are and where we come from.
Awesome. And before we go into the weeds of pitch writing and other very important skills to succeed in PR that we're going to touch on in this webinar, I want to start by talking about the media landscape to kind of set the tone for the presentation. So first and foremost, it is no secret that newsrooms worldwide are shrinking. We saw some recent layoffs, and more journalists are becoming and will become PR pros who know exactly what their former colleagues are looking for and what they're likely to overlook. Also, distractibility is on the rise. There's so much information out there, and keeping people engaged and interested is getting significantly harder. This principle applies to both the pitches you send to journalists, but also the stories that end up getting published. The news cycle is changing faster than ever. What was relevant yesterday will be forgotten by tomorrow, unless you find a way to make a long-lasting impression that resonates with the right audiences. Credibility and trust at an all-time low, and fake news has become a prevalent phenomenon that impacts engagement for media outlets, but also for creators. And moreover, the rise of AI. It has created disruption that has impacted both newsrooms and companies, prompting a change in internal dynamics and shifting the way journalists approach stories. This being said, to maximize your chances of getting press coverage via earned media, you need an enticing story delivered in the right tone, through the right medium, to correct audiences. And the aha moment here, no, media relations are not enough. So let me break it down a little bit. When we talk about PR and media relations, we always reference the importance of relationship building. But we oftentimes forget the importance of the stories that we're pushing out. So having relationships and cultivating them is indeed important and can put you in the fast lane to secure coverage, but good stories will almost always be relationships. So focus on your story and don't be afraid to cold pitch with a good story, because you have to start somewhere. I have compiled a list of great pitch tips for this presentation today, but in case you're not familiar with pitch writing just yet, I just want to make sure we give you a short definition of what a pitch is. So what we define as a media pitch is a short communication typically in an email, form, or direct message, suggesting a new story to a journalist or an editor. I like to call it the trailer to the movie. And if done right, it can result in coverage for your company or your client. The type of coverage really depends on who and what you pitch. So it can be a Q&A, an opinion piece, a byline, an interview, a podcast appearance, many different formats to work with. Some keys to remember now that we're getting into the good stuff here when writing pitches are: number one, you need to focus on the impact. As great as your product is, it will never be greater than the impact it has on its users, the industries that it affects, or the benefits that the society as a whole gets from it. So instead of making your pitch about promoting your product or your service, focus on making it better, on how it's making life better, and how it fits within a bigger story, within a bigger picture. That's focusing on impact. Number two is keeping it human. So it is very important here to prioritize the human element of your story. Not only the people behind the amazing work you're doing, but also the success stories of the people that have trusted your solutions or your products, third-party advocates, spokespeople from your team, and the members of society at large. So keep it human. Number three, short and sweet. Journalists and editors are short on time. Not only are they super busy, but also they're under a lot of pressure. So try to deliver your message in the most succinct and respectful way possible. Even technical journalists covering really complex topics prefer to receive stories and the details about those stories in a simple way. Unless you know the reporter and you know they like it different, try to be super succinct to the point. Number four is make it relatable. A well-written pitch provides you with a great opportunity to help others resonate with your message and cultivate your relationship with the media. So always keep the journalist audience in mind at all times and craft your story in a way that they will be able to relate to it. And number five, add value. Make yourself and your spokespeople available to talk about topics beyond your product and service. Leverage the knowledge and expertise to share valuable information that can help your contacts in the media do their work. Stay open, maintain a collaborative attitude, and be proactive. It also helps to share data, visual materials, links, folders. Everything should be easy access to help journalists work with you in the most seamless way possible. And one last bonus tip before sending a pitch out: review the tone. If it sounds salesy or part of a marketing ad, rework it immediately. Remember, reporters are looking for stories, not for ads. And last but not least, don't lose your cool. PR is hard. This may not be the best time for your story to be out there, but there are many others that you can be a part of. So it's not a secret that there's many things happening at any given time in the world, and breaking through that noise can be incredibly challenging. But persistently focusing on delivering impactful and relatable stories that resonate with the audience and being patient will land you in the news as soon as the time is right. So hang in there, be patient, be realistic, be persistent.
Love it. So, Caro, just to before we dive into the fun part on my end of how to use technology to help do these pieces, we do this day in, day out. We're pretty familiar with this process and how it works for clients. Let's just try to break this down and make sure we're getting this straight. So, if I represent a company, we're a niche technology company, and we want to get the word out about our company. Even if I don't have deep connections with editors as is, I can write compelling emails with stories that would resonate with some journalists. I can send those emails to the right journalists who write about those kind of topics, and they will, some of them might be interested in quoting or writing about us. That's basically how the flow works.
Yes, correct. So pitches, as I mentioned, are just the short form of communication to get in touch with an editor, to get in touch with a reporter, to suggest a news story. And again, a news story is what I like to call mediagenic content. It's not an ad, it's not a self-promotional about your company. It's more how your product or service fits into the bigger picture of what's happening in the news cycle today. So that's what pitches do, and that's what pitches are for. And again, if you don't have relationships, you will have to build them and start from scratch somewhere. So don't be afraid to cold pitch a reporter you don't know, but just keep in mind that the story has to be really interesting, really enticing, in order for you or your company to get the coverage that you want.
Yeah. And for many, many PR pros, even some of the folks who work as part of our team, the way you build relationships is by consistently offering value to the reporters and editors who are covering these stories, by helping to be a good source, by offering credible information and data and helping them do their job. That is the foundation of building a good relationship with the media. So you got to start somewhere, and being a great source, pitching great stories, being a useful provider of insights and data, that's how you get started. So yeah.
Right. And there's actually, Steve, technology is making life a lot easier for us PR pros in order to do that. So, I mean,
Let's
we are
dive in.
we
Yeah.
are a PR company, but I want to start by saying that AI will not replace PR pros in my point of view, but it will make pitch writing and story ideation more efficiently. And we have some stats to prove how it is making life easier for businesses in general. So 94% of business leaders think that AI will be important for business success. And the impact of AI technologies of businesses is projected to increase labor productivity by up to 40% and enable people to make better use of their time, more efficient use of their time. And this is also true for PR. So tell us a little bit more about how this can be done in our industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple different parts to pitching that we should break down in the process and show how AI and technology can help at each part of that process. So if we advance through to the first little section here on technology, we will see. Yep. So tech can help you with the ideas of what to pitch. As we talked about, you can't just say send out a pitch that says we exist, you should write about us. You have to tie it into a broader narrative. So in order to use technology to understand what to pitch, one way to do this is using tech for media monitoring. So media monitoring is understanding the trending stories that your company could comment on or might tie into. So a lot of media monitoring tools out there, everything from Google News Alerts to PR tools like Muckrack, Profit, our own platform, Preston Intelligent Relations, helps you to stay up to speed with what's happening in the industry and identifying those narratives that you fit into. So as an example, if you see that there's a story about, this is an example of a data privacy company. If you see that there is a big new piece of data privacy legislation, or you see that there is a data breach or something like that, those are opportunities that your company as experts in that space can reach out and say, we have exclusive insights. Our customers are reacting in this way. We believe that this new legislation is a threat to XYZ. So that's a great way to not make the story about you, but to help further that narrative and pitch on those ideas. So using technology to understand what's happening in the industry, that's one really powerful way to understand what you can be pitching on and get those ideas. Beyond that, there are out-of-the-box tools. We mentioned a couple of paid options. Out-of-the-box tools, ChatGPT, Bard, a lot of AI chatbots that are readily available for free or $20 a month are connected to the internet, and you can chat with them. And you can ask them questions such as, what are some of the latest stories in the data privacy or cybersecurity space? And it can help you to identify not just news stories, but some of those trends. I think that's one of the things that AI can help with as well is not just identifying here's story 1, 2, 3, but helping to cluster and make sense of the narrative, because as Caro alluded to, lot happening, a lot of individual data points. AI can help to make sense of the broader narratives, and this story is a big deal, this one not such a big deal. So using AI in the form of out-of-the-box chatbots or specialized technology can help you not just say, here's one story that actually no one's paying attention to, versus here's the one that's really getting a lot of attention, a lot of coverage, and the one that's most likely to continue to get traction in the days and weeks to come. So in summary, yes, you can use technology and AI to help to come up with story ideas for you to pitch. Next up, tech can help to draft your pitches. Now, I want to stay on this point for just a second. As we talked about, AI is a tool that can help you to do your job better, but it's critically important that you as professionals are actively involved in the process of setting the standard and making sure that whatever you send out maps to that standard, is of quality. It's the same kind of thing if you had an intern draft a pitch for you and they wrote complete nonsense, but you sent it out in your name, you're still the one who's going to be accountable for the content of what you're sending out. So I just want to speak briefly on the topic of authorship. Yes, use AI to help you draft things that you send out on your behalf. But ultimately, if you're putting your name to it, if you're signing the email, if you're the one who's sending it out into the world, the standard of accountability, the standard is onto you, and the accountability is onto you to make sure that you're pitching information that you would be proud to put your name on. So AI, that said, with all those caveats, yes, there's a number of tools out there that can help you to draft pitches for the purpose of sending to journalists. Our platform is one. I would be remiss not to mention that we have built a series of custom AI generators that allow you to write pitches, everything from podcast pitches to interview pitches to pitches that would propose writing sponsored content, to we have data pitches, to award submissions, everything like that. And some of the tools, our tool, and I believe there's other PR platforms as well that are experimenting this space. The advantage of using tools that are custom fit for writing pitches is that, at least in our case, they are trained on good examples of pitches that have worked in the past. They know the format, they know what a good pitch looks like. If you use an out-of-the-box tool, which plenty exist, you can, again, use Bard, use Claude, use ChatGPT. It can help you write an email that sounds decent, and in theory, you could use that as a jumping off point. But as we talked about, there is a bit of an art to the pitch, and if you're using something that a tool that doesn't really know what good looks like, you're probably going to have to do a lot more editing, and you may miss the mark by using one of those tools. But in any case, it can help to draft those pitches. It's very important, as just a pro tip here, that you would at the end add some extra links, punch up with data or additional facts, add resources, etc. Make sure that it's really up to snuff. But Caro mentioned that AI can help in many ways to increase productivity by 40%. In our internal testing, we've seen that using our AI pitch generator is saving our team between 70-85% of time versus writing it completely from scratch. So these tools are helping a lot of folks who are PR pros and more junior communications folks do really good work with less time and effort. Cool. So yes, AI and tech can help you know what to pitch. Yes, it can help you to draft the pitch. That's a good part of the battle. But the most important thing, one of the oldest lessons in the book in copywriting or in direct response writing, is the theory of empathy. You have to write with empathy, meaning you have to know who's on the other side of the email that you're sending. You're not just writing something and then randomly blasting it off into the void. You have to be sending these pitches to the right people who are likely to respond positively to what you're pitching. So, Caro, just before I dive into this a little bit, could you explain like traditional list building? How, what is a typical flow of knowing who to send a pitch to?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what we used to do before this amazing tools, we used to go into the media outlets and review and check one by one what each reporter covered, depending on the topic that we were going to pitch. And we would take note and see, like, oh, this person covers this beat. We're going to pitch him this story. So it was a very manual work that took hours to complete. And if you're an agency and have multiple clients, well, you know that this is very exhausting and it takes a lot of hours in the day. So again, you went into the media outlet, you researched the reporter, you reviewed all of the news stories that they were covering, and then you would determine if the beat was a fit or not for the pitch that you were trying to do.
Yeah. And that got even more complicated in recent years as we talked about shrinking newsrooms, high velocity of job changes, people changing beats, stories moving so quickly. It has become virtually impossible to keep up with who's covering what stories at what media outlets in a manual way. So thankfully, this is where technology can help as well. Technology can help to understand who you should send your pitches to. So let's dive into a little bit more detail here and go into how that can work. So beyond that, you can get, so when you have a pitch, there is a process you can use AI to recommend the journalists who are most likely to cover a certain story. So there's a number of different ways that technology can do this. On our end, what we're doing is we are mapping the concepts that are covered in the story in your pitch against a database of a couple 100,000 journalists, content creators, and editors based on what they have been covering recently. So this is one of the great things about AI is that it can process a tremendous amount of data in a very quick period of time and identify job changes and beat changes and things like that much faster than a manual process or a team of humans can do. So by analyzing 10 million plus articles a month and mapping those to journalists and publications, you can make sure that this pitch actually maps very closely to these journalists and what they're covering recently, so that you know that it's going to be likely to be a good fit. Our platform does this. There's other tools that are coming up. I know some of the big players in the space are also exploring different methods. We believe that one of the best ways to know who is going to respond well to your pitch is to actually see what they've been writing about recently, not just their job title or written beat that was tagged by a person a couple months ago, but no, most recently they actually are covering this event, hack, news event, conference. Therefore, you're going to fit in at the right time with your story. Beyond that, this is one of the areas that we're most excited about. I think this is an area that a lot of people in the PR tech space are watching, but this is the concept of recursive learning, basically machines that and processes that get smarter over time based on feedback. So the way this works is that uh, as you send out pitches, a well-designed system will actually monitor, who's responding positively, who's responding negatively, and then based on that feedback, ensuring that your next round of pitches are getting better over time, that your next round of targeting gets better over time. We've seen this, for example, in the ad industry for a couple of years now, whereas, Facebook or online advertisers, they'll see who's clicking what ads and then get smarter at serving ads to people who care most. Uh, this is something that is we are investing in quite heavily at Intelligent Relations, and is definitely an area to watch across the PR space. This benefits the folks who are sending the pitches, the PR pros, the communication specialists, and also it has a benefit to the journalists and the editors and the storytellers on the other side of that, because end of the day, the best case scenario is that people who are having stories to tell are sending a limited number of pitches to the people who most likely care about those stories, and we're minimizing the amount of spray and pray and spamming and collateral damage and all that stuff, just sending limited number of targeted pitches to the right people who care, and that's where you have a really efficient exchange that's offering value to both sides. Cool. So lastly, that is a typical flow that I think people think about. what do you say? How do you say it? Who do you say it to? But I think that this last piece, this idea of personalization and deep insights, is something that often gets overlooked because, well, it's hard to do. Yeah, the best pitches are not one size fit all for 150 different journalists. That is a typical practice in a lot of PR teams. It's kind of a spray and pray type of approach. You spray out a bunch of pitches and just hope that someone gets back to you. But really good pitching, really well targeted and effective pitching is personalized to the person on the other end of the email. You might have a great story that is kind of sort of relevant to 50 different journalists, but they cover it from slightly different perspectives. One of them cares about it because it's a big tech story. The other cares about it because it's related to cybersecurity and big tech, or the other cares about it because, yes, this is actually more of a human interest and technology piece. What folks are writing about really is personal, and it's deeply connected to the stories that they're trying to tell. So by using technology, you can do better personalization of the pitches to make sure that you're telling the right story in a way that connects to what this person wants to care about. So we're going to go into a little bit detail here of how technology can help you to understand the individual folks that you're pitching to, and then even help to personalize them in an effective way so that the stories you're telling match really well. So we're just going to go through a couple different examples here of how AI is helping to make sense of a lot of data. So, for example, in our platform, we have the Preston summary, which analyzes the most recent 10 or 15 articles and helps to extract in a concise format for a PR pro what it is that this journalist is caring about, is writing about, and from what perspective. We even have pitching insights and things like that on the right-hand side of the dashboard as well, so you can understand, like at a glimpse, see the big picture of what this person is writing about recently, and this updates in real time or darn close to it based on their evolving narrative. So you're not looking at a a LinkedIn bio that they wrote 2 years ago, but actually an accurate analysis of what they've covered recently to make sure that you're commenting and tying in your pitch to that. Beyond that, of course, with a large amount of information, a large volume of articles, you can do some really good analysis in terms of the beats, the themes, the topics. So it can help you to make sense of what people are covering in a more macro level. So in order to understand what someone really cares about, yes, of course, you should read their articles, but it's kind of tough to, as a person, to read 10 different articles and make sense of, like, okay, what are the through lines of this coverage? Like, what is, what let me try to analyze what is it that is most important to this person over a period of time. AI and technology can help to analyze that and understand those trends. So you're not just commenting on, hey, you wrote about Google recently. Well, I wrote about it because it's a human interest story about one specific person, et cetera, et cetera. So you can help understand through better analysis what they care about in that way. And then one other point here is that for personalization, you can look into, this is a new feature that we developed, which is coverage attributes, understanding, what is the DNA of an article that this person is creating. Is this an article that has expert commentary, or cites data, or is actually a product review, or is interesting because it's a breaking or evolving story, things like that. So for example, if you want to pitch a story and you could either send data or offer an interview with the CEO of your company to comment, well, some journalists like to talk to CEOs, and others just say, send me the report and I'll take out of it what I want and cite the data back to the company. So understanding what it is that they use on a regular basis can also help you to personalize the pitch and adjust your pitch to offer what they want, rather than something that's a bad fit as well. So having all this data at your fingertips can help you to customize each pitch and I'll just say even better is if the tool you're using is smart enough to take this information and adjust the pitch automatically because you truly understand what it is they care about, what they respond to, and what they're writing about most recently. So that's where we're at and continuing to invest in at Intelligent Relations. Of course, there are out-of-the-box tools that can help you. These are not custom fit to the use case of PR, but the great news is that as the big tech companies invest in more powerful and robust one-size-fit-all solutions, they can help. They can help in a certain extent. So you can ask questions like, what is this journalist writing about recently? And, Bing Chat, for example, can go out and search and return some information, and it can give you some summaries. Again, it's not part of a workflow that makes it super easy for you, but it's certainly easier than having to go out, Google, read a bunch of different articles from Google News, etc. So even if you're not in a place to invest in the right technology, these out-of-the-box solutions are getting better at general tasks, and that's something that you can leverage for your advantage. So I think that's hopefully a pretty good dive into how AI and technology can assist in this art of the pitch, making it better, making better pitches for outreach. I think it'd be good for me just to kind of wrap up with a couple closing thoughts on how technology can and should not be used when doing PR outreach. So in summary, yes, do use AI to assist in public relations activities. Conventional wisdom says that it'll help to improve productivity by 40% or more, depending on the specific activity. Yes, totally fine to use AI to write draft versions of the content that you're writing, as we discussed. And even using it for ideation and creative activities, it can help. It can help. And you can use it also in the right tools to recommend journalists who are most likely or podcasts who are most likely to cover a given story that you want to pitch. With that said, here's the things we just want to make sure we're careful of is don't use AI to automate PR. It's risky. You could send out something that doesn't represent your company brand properly. There is always the risk of hallucinations, meaning the AI generates something that's not 100% factually accurate. You don't want to fully automate this. It's a sensitive function for your company, and so it's important to have a human in the loop who knows the standard and is enforcing that. For that reason, you don't want to use AI to write the final versions of your content or use AI for factual research or factual accuracy. It's getting much better. I think that we've seen in the last 2 years that the level of errors is drastically reduced, but if you're putting your name to it, you got to be careful that you're sending out information that is true and accurate. And lastly, as we touch on journalist recommendations, this technology is getting much better, but you still want to make sure that before you send out a blast of emails to way too many journalists, that you take the time to spot check and ideally read a bit of coverage from the people you're going to be reaching out to. These are professionals. These are people. These are real humans on the other end of your emails. They're not just they're not a vehicle to communicate your company messaging. So you want to make sure that you're treating them with respect and that you're sending out pitches that they likely would care about. That's how you get results. That's how you build good relationships, and that's how you build a good PR media ecosystem for all folks involved. Those would be my closing thoughts. Caro, anything else we want to touch on or that maybe I missed?
No, I think you've summarized it. I mean, we could stay talking about this for hours, but this was a great summary.
Yeah, as always, personal questions welcome. I believe our contact information will be available via email or at the end of the webinar. So feel free to reach out if you have specific questions you want to discuss with us or other members of the team. But yeah, it looks like we have some
We do.
Q&A.
We
Yeah.
do. So what is a foolproof formula for writing interesting pitches? I can start here, Steve.
Yeah. Foolproof is tough. What do you think?
Yeah, I gotta say that there is no secret formula to success. But what I can tell you is that if you start getting to know the reporter or do some research on the reporter's style, you will have more success. And of course, all these tools that we just talked about can help. Technically speaking, I would say that I would not recommend a pitch to be more than 200 words. And I also encourage stories to be topical rather than evergreen, so tied to news cycles, like we mentioned. And yeah, tie your narrative to what's going on. Those would be like my tips for successful pitches, interesting pitches.
Sounds good. I would say that you touched on most of the items. A few just hacks that I would consider, not foolproof recipe, but hacks. We found that being very specific is better than being very general. So uh, if you can talk about a very specific event or trend in an industry rather than saying overall cybersecurity doesn't understand this, but like given this recent piece of legislation or this new event, like make it super specific to something that's happening now. That can help. Sometimes taking a contrarian viewpoint, don't be contrarian for the sake of being contrarian, but if you have an unusual or surprising or counterintuitive position or piece of data that contradicts or poses an interesting counterpoint to a conventional narrative, that also can be a way to get outsized response for your pitches.
Okay, here's another one. How can I use current affairs and trending news to insert my brand into a story or conversation without seeming blatantly opportunistic? Okay, and it's similar to what you were just mentioning, Steve. So referencing a news story and offering up a client to talk about it is usually not enough. You need to find like a unique inside opinion angle that the client has on it. So I would tackle this by asking yourself, how does your client or your company contribute to the solution of the situation or the conflict that the news story is suggesting? Or what information can the client provide that is fresh and hasn't been previously proposed? If it adds value, I wouldn't perceive it as opportunistic. So I would just, reiterate the importance of like a specific tie-in and adding data points. Maybe the company has some owned research that always helps.
Well, Kara, may I suggest you've had great success in this with, we have a client in the aviation space who we love, and we've helped, maybe you could speak to that as an example. It could be a good case study.
Yeah, absolutely. So the client is into aviation security, a consultant for many big companies. And of course, he can talk about many technical aspects as he's an engineer. But when aviation news stories break, like the door that fell off that plane a couple weeks ago and things like that, he's always super willing to give his perspective on, what could have gone wrong, what really is the issue, the underlying issue behind the incident. So that is usually really useful to reporters. And it has become a really interesting report with reporters that we don't necessarily need to pitch them, but they already know that this spokesperson is, first of all, super knowledgeable, but also open and willing to give interviews, to respond in a timely manner. So we started by cold pitching a ton of people. And then when they started trusting in us, in that spokesperson in particular, they started reaching out to us without us having to create the stories. That's kind of that cycle with that client. And yeah, it's a really interesting case study.
Yeah, and I think part of what made that successful is that there's legitimate credibility, legitimate expertise. It's not, when we pitched, he's not trying to make it all about his company, but actually commenting on the story. He's consistently talking about what people care about, which is this specific news story. And over time, it's helped to earn a lot of media coverage for him as an expert and his company.
Yeah, and I also would like to add there that he started, even though he's got a ton of social proof, when we started the engagement with him, um, he started taking opportunities that didn't seem huge. Like it wasn't tier one news outlets. He started building that credibility from the beginning up. And, now he's being called by um, top tier news outlets on a regular basis. So Yes, he's not opportunistic in the sense that he adds value to the story that the reporter is trying to cover. All right. How can I adjust my marketing sales background to meet the demands of journalists and editors who ask for non-promotional and vendor-neutral stories and content?
This is a
Uh,
wonky question from someone who knows marketing and sales quite well.
I would, if I may start, I just
Yeah.
like this question a lot because this is something I encounter on a regular basis. So, by intentionally removing self-promotional language, being intentional about it is the best way to tackle this. Always try to provide value to the journalist, useful information, data, stats, analysis. Take the call to action. Buy here, see this, download. Those call to actions usually indicate some promotional language. So I would just focus on the story. But more importantly, just like I said in the presentation, when you read the pitch, if it sounds salesy, if it looks like an ad, if you could put it um, as part of your marketing strategy, rewrite it. I don't know if there's anything you have to add.
Yeah, it's a different mindset. I actually spent a decent chunk of years doing paid advertising, direct response, that type of marketing, where you have to very quickly communicate the value proposition of what you do in a succinct way that inspires action. That's an art unto itself. PR is a different art, and I think the way we communicate to new users of our platform or new clients is folks don't like it, but journalists don't care about your company. It's not their job to tell the story of your company. They care about the news. I know we're hitting the same point over and over again, but hopefully this is useful in its repetition. That your job is to support them in telling broader stories, and so it's a significantly less direct method. Don't make the story about you. Understand what is an interesting story that you're a part of, and pitch on that. And pre-trained tools, such as the one we built into intelligent relations, can help that. So I mean, that by design in our platform, if someone writes a pitch that is super self-promotional, it will redo and offer suggestions to modify that pitch into something that's much more likely to get a response.
You touch a good point there, Steve, and it's that if we use other tools that are more generic, I'm not saying they're not great, but they may just not catch the sales C and ad part of it because they're just not designed specifically for PR. So this is where PR terrain tools do make a difference.
Well, we were doing some testing recently and saw that one example pitch that was output from an AI generator, like the pitch started off with "Attention all journalists!" Like we have a something that's like that's unlikely to elicit a good response, and that's without refinement. That is the default uh, AI style of a lot of generators.
If I write my pitches with AI, will they get caught on the AI detectors in journalist inboxes? What do I need to do to prevent that from happening? Okay, this is your territory, Steve.
This is for me. We it's a very interesting world we could get into more detail on. In short, there will be a bit of an arms race between AI content creation and AI content detection. Um, so technology for detecting AI is improving, but it's far from perfect. When you write emails when you write emails using artificial intelligence, it is possible that in a future world that they would be picked up as it would be flagged as having AI content as part of it. But I think what we're seeing, being pretty deep in this world, is that the culture around using AI is evolving. People want good content. People understand that AI is going to be a part of everything we consume in the future to a certain extent. And if you're writing content that is good, it's not about tricking algorithms and robots and things into not like into thinking like this was 100% written by a human and had no AI assistance. It's about using tools to create good content that offers value. there's absolutely a time and a place where AI content detection should be implemented. I don't want AI writing my legislation for, to govern my day-to-day activities. You want to be very careful in using AI content for medical records or things like that. There's some very sensitive things, but in our world, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. If you're creating good content that is well edited and useful, you're kind of on the right side of things. And just to further the point about how AI is going to be in everything, when you use Gmail or another tool, you have autocomplete for phrases that you started to type already built in. I hope you're having a great day. It anticipates that next word and autocompletes with that. That is a simple, limited scope application of the same kind of technology that we're using with something like a ChatGPT or a Bard or something like that. So increasingly, already and over the next couple of years, AI content will be baked into all of the content you're creating and all the content that you're consuming. And I would just advise that folks focus more on, are you creating something that has value? If you use AI tools to support you in that, that should be part of an acceptable practice, so long as you're doing your due diligence on the back end to make sure it's good and high quality. So that's a slightly abstract way of answering the question, but I really think that is the important thing to understand looking forward.
And being mindful of time, I think, yeah, this is 45 minutes. So again, we're going to leave our contact information here. If there's any questions that you have, feel free to reach out. We're going to try to answer some more questions of the ones you left here on our social media channels. And yeah, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. It's a pleasure. Feel free to reach out, and hopefully this was useful for you in your PR endeavors.